Good Monday evening to 11 Alive weather impact meteorologist Melissa Nord. We are tracking two different things on this Monday evening. We are tracking Hurricane Melissa, which is on its final approach towards landfall in western Jamaica early Tuesday. And we're also tracking a very wet pattern for us here in North Georgia. We picked up our biggest rainfall amount that we've seen in about 9 months here since February. So really, 8 months since mid-February. And we do have some more rain chances on the way as we look at the rest of the week. But let's get you the latest on Hurricane Melissa. Here's what we know right now within this storm. It has been a Category 5 storm now for almost 12 hours. So we are looking at this storm not showing any significant signs of weakening. In fact, we expect it to remain a dangerous, powerful, likely Category 5 storm as it makes landfall here on Tuesday morning, and that's going to be in western Jamaica. I want to show you the satellite image and what we've seen from hurricane hunters today as well. You can see this very symmetric buzzsaw shape around this storm. As we zoom in on satellite data, I mean, it's perfectly symmetrical, and the core of the storm, that eye, it's wobbling a little bit to the northwest. So we're seeing that movement westward is really stalling, and it's getting shifted and steered more to the north. Now, this storm, the really strong winds extend 30 miles outward of the center. That's the eye wall of the storm. The rest of the storm, we're dealing with tropical storm force winds, gust in hurricane category, and then it's really just the core of that storm where we're dealing with the most intense part of the winds. And here are some of the statistics from the hurricane hunters that have been flying into this storm. We have seen several missions in different day parts for the last several days through the weekend, because when storms potentially impact bodies of land and impact lives and property, we want to get the most up-to-date, the best possible information that we can put into weather model data and really figure out where these storms are going, what the wind speeds could be when they finally make it to their destinations, and what the impacts will ultimately be. So hurricane hunters have been flying in on multiple different missions. This is actually from an earlier mission that they had to briefly abort because the turbulence was so extreme. Here's another mission that's actually flying through Melissa right now. You can see they clocked on the northwestern side of the eye wall, wind speed of 119 miles per hour at flight level. Now the plane, which I will kind of point out for you here so you can see, the plane is about to dissect it from the south. And so it's going to punch another side of that eye wall, and it's going to keep doing those little triangle shapes through it until it gets the best information possible. Now, as these planes are flying into hurricanes, what they also do is they're collecting information from dropsondes, from information that is these instruments that are dropped out of the airplane down through the column of air, the column of the hurricane, to figure out what the pressure is doing, what are the wind speeds, what's the wind direction happening in all these locations. And so we've got a lot of missions heading into Hurricane Melissa right now. And as the bird flies, I'll kind of put a measurement here for you so you can see. Right now, the eye of it is still about 110 miles southwest of Jamaica. But it's been moving northwest. It's about to be steered to the north and northeast. As it's doing so, as it's getting steered in that direction, the forward speed will begin to pick up some. So you can see here on forecast track this evening, kind of moving from northwest to maybe a little more northeast. Then we start to see the forward speed picking up a little bit as it approaches landfall. Landfall happening early Tuesday morning. So Tuesday morning around sunrise is when we expect landfall. That can be at 6 o'clock in the morning. It could be at 9 o'clock in the morning. It's somewhere kind of in that window. Our models have been showing that kind of early to mid morning we would see landfall happening. Then as we get into the afternoon on Tuesday, it's kind of cutting across western Jamaica, and then it's a very short-lived move over land. Then it's back out over the water and then on to Cuba. So then on to Cuba, and you can see here by 6 o'clock Tuesday evening, the storm is nearing Cuba, and landfall there will happen sometime around really 8 to maybe midnight tomorrow night in eastern Cuba as well. So that will still be a major hurricane when it makes it to Cuba, and could still be close to major hurricane status as it makes it over the Bahamas past going over Cuba. I want to show you wind gust speeds. We talk about the impacts on these landfalling tropical systems. Of course, the Saffir-Simpson scale, which is ranking category 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that is purely based on wind speeds. There are other facets of hurricanes that are often more deadly, and water is that facet. Okay, we're talking life-threatening flash flooding from rainfall amounts that could be 20 to 30 inches, and also storm surge, which in this case could be well into the second story of buildings right along the coast there in southwestern Jamaica. The wind direction, where things are right now, is the winds are coming in out of the east. The greatest storm surge near landfall is going to happen right after landfall. Those winds shift out of the south, and it really pushes that wall of water up as the storm is making landfall. So we see a lot of those impacts, and we'll see that huge push as well right before landfall, just right to the east of where the eye is actually going to come on shore. That's where we see that maximum storm surge. So we're already seeing right now tropical storm force gusts. These are forecast gusts, not sustained winds, and this is just a model. You can see those wind gusts. 3 o'clock, the eye wall is still just offshore, but then it comes on shore. The eye wall starts to ride onto the coastline. We start to see some of those wind gusts well over hurricane force. Even in the capital, Kingston, we see those wind gusts increasing at that point to 50 to 70 miles an hour. We'll go into 9 o'clock. This is about, give or take, a few hours from when landfall is, and as that eye wall is coming in, so the eye is the center of the storm that's calm in the middle. In fact, they did see birds flying in the eye of Melissa today, but the eye wall is the ferocious column of strong winds, and where the storm picks up in intensity right outside the eye, and that's where the peak winds will end up being on this storm. So you can see at 9 a.m. as it's just about making landfall, well over 100 mile per hour winds. We go to 131 there. This is just a forecast gust. We don't have the exact pinpointed location of landfall and what those gusts will be, but assuming Melissa is still a category 5 hurricane, we're looking at some of those sustained wind speeds that could be 170 to 180 miles per hour and gusts higher than that. So currently the winds are 175 miles per hour, which puts it just outside the top 10 or at number 10 for highest wind speed ever in the Atlantic Ocean basin for a tropical system. We have more than a handful of storms that have made it to 175, and then even fewer as you get up to 180, 185, 190 for the top storms there. But you can see Tuesday morning, those wind gusts well over 100 miles an hour. Then as it's moving inland by noon, those peak wind gusts are pushing on the right side of the storm. So Montego Bay may be just west of where the eye wall is, but it's just on the outskirts of it. So the devastating winds pushing onshore, and then finally by the afternoon, it's getting the backside of that eye wall, and then we push out to Tuesday evening, and the wind speeds start to come down. My numbers are lagging a little bit here. They'll catch up in a minute, but those wind speeds start to come down a little bit. So when can we expect the worst of the storm surge? Well, when we see, I'll kind of draw on this map, when we see the winds, the center of the storm, let's say it's going to make landfall right here, okay? Right in here, this is where you see the maximum storm surge, just right of landfall, or east of landfall, or east to the right of the direction of the movement of the storm. As it's moving inland, we still have that onshore push. Meanwhile, on the western side, we have negative storm surge, water going out from this side, but look at this. As it's moving onshore, we get water coming in on the other side near Montego Bay. So it's not just the one side of the storm that's going to see the potential for significant storm surge, but it can be many different facets of it as it's making landfall. So let me show you the latest advisory from the National Hurricane Center, and this will show you through the overnight, making landfall early Tuesday morning. And then from there, it has a very short trip over water before it's moving out over eastern Cuba. So it should arrive in eastern Cuba still as a major hurricane and then pass over the Bahamas, likely as a Category 2 hurricane. The thing about Jamaica is you can go from being at the beach level and then just 15 miles inland, you're talking about mountain peaks that are 6, 7, 7,500 feet tall. So very high mountains in Jamaica right off the coast, and that can do an incredible job, a devastating job of squeezing out more moisture from the clouds and causes a lot of runoff of the water coming down and a lot of flash flooding. There are also high mountains in Cuba as well. So as the hurricane goes over these two islands, when they pass over land and especially mountainous terrain, it disrupts the circulation a little. And that's why you're not going to see Melissa as strong as it clears Cuba and makes it to the Bahamas as what it is before Cuba and what it is before passing over Jamaica. It's because each body of land it passes over, it's number one, cut off from its supply of warm waters in the Caribbean. The hurricanes themselves get their energy from the release of latent heat, the potential energy from the release of latent heat. And number two, the mountainous terrain disrupts the circulation a little bit. So I've gone really deep in depth on this, but bottom line is I'm showing you all the different facets of the impacts of this storm. And the bottom line is it is going to be a rough night and a rough morning and a rough day tomorrow in Jamaica. Even into Cuba, still a major hurricane making landfall there. You know, when you talk about wind speeds that are above 150 miles an hour, you've got to have a really sturdy building to survive. We always say run from the water, but hide from the wind. Well, you got to run from the water by moving to high elevation, but then the wind is even stronger as you climb up in elevation. And even though a lot of these buildings in Jamaica may have concrete walls, the ceilings are incredibly vulnerable. The roofs are very vulnerable. So keep them in your thoughts tonight and tomorrow morning. We do have live cameras that we'll be showing you throughout our newscast tonight and tomorrow. We have some live cameras as long as they stay online from different areas in Jamaica. So we will be watching that very closely. And then later on, this storm will pass very close to Bermuda. Let's flip the switch. Let's talk about local North Georgia weather because we have seen a huge change in the pattern today. Yes, famine to feast. That is what I'm calling this. We got more rain today, 2.06 inches. Okay, it's actually the 8 o'clock climate report came out 2.07 so far. Still a few hours to go tonight, but really incredible rainfall amounts today. And that is a stark contrast from the previous 9 weeks when we had just picked up 0.36 inches of rain since September, really since August 20th or so was our last decent rainfall, August 21st, give or take. So we really didn't have even a third of an inch of rain, half inch of rain or anything like that. And all of a sudden today, over 2 inches of rain. It was our wettest calendar day since February 12th. And also our coldest calendar day since March 10th. So Atlanta was raw today. It was cold, it was wet. We had widespread rain in the morning. Some of that caused some issues with standing water on the roadways. Couple of roadways even had some infrastructure issues where the kind of culvert, the storm drain underneath, washed out and gave way to those swiftly moving waters. Rainfall amount, biggest winners. This is through about 5 o'clock today. Monroe, 3.3 inches, about 3.25 in Stone Mountain. Lawrenceville, just over 3, and 2.89 in Dawsonville. And we are still looking at more drizzle moving through. We may be not dealing with as widespread, consistent rain, but it's that nuisance drizzle that's going to be with us through your Tuesday morning commute at least. And it's incredible when you look at these temperatures the last 20 hours. We really have not seen a climb in the numbers. We did manage to crack 60 yesterday, but the rain started moving in. It has been cold for your Monday in North Georgia. And the 50s are not going anywhere, but I want to talk about more rain moving back in because what we're dealing with outside right now is kind of this nuisance drizzle. You can see radar the last 12 hours. We had that sloppy morning commute, really wet roadways. Once we got to the afternoon, though, the rain tapered off. We had some lulls, and now this evening, that nuisance drizzle is building back in. And I know people, my producers were joking, if I had $1 for every time you said drizzle on air, but yeah, it is drizzle, and it's because we have the wedge in North Georgia. Better chance of steadier rain or more consistent showers comes in Wednesday from this next weather feature that's moving through the plains right now. So what do I expect tonight? Drizzle, mist, fog, occasional light showers. It's going to be damp out there in the overnight. Tomorrow, it is more of the same, where in the afternoon we're not seeing as much on radar, but we're going to see some of that nuisance light shower, drizzle, fog activity in the morning. And then as the temperatures climb up like 2 degrees in the afternoon, we'll see that drizzle kind of winding down. It'll be slightly drier for the tail end of the day. We get into your Wednesday, and that'll bring another renewed opportunity for rains. Let me show you forecast track on that. That'll be our system coming in from the plains. First, you can see overnight through Tuesday morning, nuisance drizzle is here. By Tuesday afternoon, we're not dealing with as much of that drizzle and more of just the low clouds, breezy winds, cold temperatures. Still feels a little bit damp outside, so maybe a little mist, but it's not as much as what we're going to deal with tomorrow morning. Then Tuesday night comes in. Here comes the weather system number 2 of the week. By the time you wake up Wednesday morning, the rain has moved back in. So we'll be dealing with another wave Wednesday of showers. At times they could be fairly widespread. The timing of those will be the morning through the early afternoon. By the late afternoon, you can see we're clearing that rain out, drying us out a bit. Thursday will bring a few wraparound showers. Forecast track kind of shows a couple of those pivoting in for Thursday morning through the early afternoon. And the gusty winds are still going to be with us as well. And let's talk more about those wind gusts because, yeah, it's been breezy out there. I'll show you the wind gusts that we've been seeing. They've been on the order today. We had even some peak gusts up in the higher elevations around 40 miles an hour. If we go through the overnight, we're still going to stay breezy. Tuesday morning, we're still breezy. Tuesday afternoon, we're still breezy. It's that northeast wind, that dreaded wedge. Then as the rain comes in again Wednesday, those wind gusts will pick up again. So especially on the ridge tops up in North Georgia, not the metro, but North Georgia, where we have a lot more elevation and topography going on. The ridge tops could see gusts again Wednesday morning around 40 miles an hour. And then those gusty winds crank into the metro again Wednesday mid-morning through the afternoon. Finally, by Thursday, the wind direction shifts. It's still breezy on Thursday. You could call it windy at times, but that's going to be scouring out this low-level cloud cover and this dampness that we are seeing in the atmosphere, and that will allow for our sunshine to make a return. We haven't seen sunshine today. We didn't really see sunshine yesterday. We will not see it again until Friday, really, is the next best chance to see it. How much rain is coming? Well, this next system is not going to bring as much of a dose of rainfall, but it's going to bring some. So I expect a lot of those rainfall totals to be on the order of 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch. We can locally see some amounts pick up about an inch of rainfall, but it's not going to be the widespread rule of the case on Wednesday. All right, so let's just kind of recap our local forecast. We will start with some fog, some low clouds, drizzle, mist, nuisance showers first thing on Tuesday morning. It's going to be kind of a little bit of a damp, cold, raw start to the day. I don't think we see as much rain around in the afternoon. In fact, it could just be kind of cloudy and chilly and breezy outside. Notice the temperature is not climbing much. Some models have us getting up to about 57. I'm remaining more pessimistic. I think the wedge is pretty strong. I think more drizzle overnight is going to reinforce it. And if we're sucked into that wedge and the cloud cover and the drizzle tomorrow morning, it's going to take longer to see that erode away before we can see those temperatures climbing up any number of degrees for the afternoon. So I'm actually going 55. That's a little bit under the Weather Service. You can see they've got a couple of spots close to 60. I just personally think the wedge is going to hold. I just think it's going to hold. Wednesday, mid-50s again. More rain comes through. We'll be probably lucky to make it to 55, but that will finally scour out the wedge. So Thursday, wrap around gusty winds. It's going to be still chilly on Thursday, but that will give way to sunshine and a slight warming trend to start the weekend. When I say slight, I mean, yes, we'll be above 60, but we are still running 10 degrees below average for your Halloween day on Friday. Not just that, the morning lows will also be rather chilly outside. Look at our lows down to the low 40s by Friday and Saturday. That means for trick-or-treating on Friday evening, I've got us tumbling down pretty quickly through the 50s. So lots of layers, a good idea for trick-or-treaters out there. I think the latest trick-or-treaters, those bigger kids that are out a little bit longer, it's going to be in the 40s. North Georgia mountains will be in the 40s for part of trick-or-treating time, but here in the Atlanta area, we'll probably start off for those youngest trick-or-treaters in the upper 50s and then fall back into the mid-50s as a lot of them are continuing. And then by 9 o'clock, most folks are done trick-or-treating because it just gets too cold too quickly. It's a lot of houses to make it to, right? And we'll be down to 51. Here's your 7-day forecast. Tomorrow morning, a little bit damp, but not as waterlogged as what it was on your Monday. We'll be tracking a 30% chance of some light showers, a little bit of drizzle and mist around, along with some patchy fog. For the afternoon, cloudy skies, high of 55, with a slight chance of a shower lingering. More rain comes in Wednesday. Thursday, we finally start to dry things out and bring in some hints of sunshine. Then we'll warm those temperatures up into the 60s as we get into the weekend. And don't forget, this weekend, we finally are falling back. Daylight saving time ends Sunday, November 2nd. We will repeat the 2 to 3 a.m. hour in the overnight. And what does that mean? Well, it means you have a 49-hour weekend. 49 hours, that's great. But after we fall back, the sunset time on Sunday is just 5:43. Not just that, parents of young kids, your kids are going to have no idea what's happening with their bodies when you're trying to wake them up at a different time than they're used to be woken up at and put them to bed at a different time, especially for those toddlers. The evening witching hours in the daylight saving time ending window in early November is always a pretty brutal one when you're like, okay, like, I'm trying to get dinner on the table, but you already think it's bedtime. So that is coming up this weekend. All right, we'll see you back here on 11 Alive News at 11 o'clock. You can watch us on 11 Alive Plus for that as well. And coming up tonight at 11, we are awaiting the newest information on Hurricane Melissa, which again is right now a dangerous Category 5 hurricane, and it's on its final approach to Jamaica. So that storm right now, winds of 175 miles per hour, moving northwest, but it's going to be moving more due north. Landfall is imminent sometime Tuesday morning. So our next update from the National Hurricane Center comes up at 11 o'clock tonight. We'll have that for you coming up on 11 Alive News at 11.